Are you sitting in a space where you are struggling with anxiety? Do you feel like a prisoner to the cycles of depression? Do you feel stuck in your own life and feel frustrated and lost, but yet you know there is so much more on the other side of this mental breakdown? I want to hold your hand through this therapeutic life healing journey. I will help you navigate emotional healing, spiritual growth, and taking massive action so you can align your mind, body, and spirit to completely transforming your life. You are worthy of the life of your dreams, of stepping into your power and experiencing your breakdown as your breakthrough. Hey, I'm Aditi. I'm your therapist, your coach, your mentor. Join me as we heal your life together. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited for you all to meet Jessica Pancrazio. She is a clinical mental health counselor and intuitive life coach. And we are going to dive into the topic of spiritual bypassing and shadow work. I'm so excited to have her on the show. Welcome, Jessica. So good to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here and talk about this topic.
And Jessica, can you share a little bit about yourself, just introducing listeners to what you do and the work that you've been involved with for the time that you have?
Sure. So like you said, I'm a trained therapist, mental health counselor in my day job. I have my master's degree in clinical mental health counseling, and I've been working in the field for over 10 years. Currently, I work in a psychiatric hospital as an intake clinician, my day job. And then my business as an intuitive life coach, I help women awaken their soul purpose and overcome any past hurt or pain that has been hidden in the subconscious, doing that shadow work and really moving forward in their life. And I use a couple skills with that. I read tarot cards and oracle cards for people. And I'm also a hypnotherapist. I do hypnotherapy and I do guided meditations and past life regression. So anybody who's interested in that type of woo stuff, kind of incorporate my therapy skills with this spiritual side, help women achieve their goals.
Oh, we are all about the woo-woo on this. So I'm like all about energy work. That's so exciting. Hypnosis. Can you share a little bit about how do you do hypnosis with folks?
It's really, I use my guided meditations to bring people in such a relaxed state that I can help them get to those things that are hidden in the subconscious. It's hard for me to explain how I do it. I don't do the typical, like the watch thing or anything. It's just really the way that you use calming suggestions to people. It helps the listeners get to that safe and comfortable place so that they can be open to these suggestions to open up. And I actually lead moon circles 2 times a month on the new moon and the full moon. And we do a little bit of card readings and intention settings. And then I do a guided meditation depending on the theme or where the moon's placed that night. The most recent one, it was the second new moon in Cancer. And we focused on letting go of those emotions. And I had them visualize themselves floating down a stream and imagining the emotions floating off of them. I just love doing the visualization stuff. And an interesting thing about it is I don't write these down. I just sit down and I just start talking and I just say it as it comes out. I feel like it's more natural that way instead of writing a script.
Yeah, I can completely resonate with that. I get very anxious having to be written out rather than kind of just like allowing the energetic flow of what needs to come through. And that's what it sounds like you're doing. You're just kind of guiding this energy that comes through and supporting women, it sounds like specifically through that journey. Can you share a little bit about if someone is listening and it's their first time or maybe their first few times hearing a little bit about shadow work and energy work? And so what is that? What is shadow work? What is this whole spiritual journey all about?
So I guess this is also connected to the spiritual bypassing thing, which we'll get more into. But shadow work is talking about and addressing the darkness that we all have. We have this association that light is good and dark is bad, but you need both of them together for healing. And related to the spiritual bypassing, you'll probably see a lot of love and light on the internet. Just be positive, think
Yes.
happy thoughts. And I get pretty sarcastic when I talk about that because it's all well and good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not addressing the core pain that's underneath it all, it's going to be pretty hard to think positive. So, shadow work is really diving into that in a safe place, in a non judgmental place, allowing my clients to feel heard even when they have these negative emotions that society normally judges. If they're angry or jealous, lonely, all of these feelings that we push away because we don't think they're good, we don't think they're right, but you have to feel them, because if you just ignore it for your whole life, it's going to be like a balloon that explodes in your face. You kind of have to let it out slowly.
I always kind of think about it just like stuck energy, and then it just comes out in other ways that we unconsciously, it comes out one way or another. And I think when you embrace it, you're actually able to really not necessarily control it, but you're able to let it flow and not judge it and allow it to teach you something, and leaning into the pain, into the shadow, and not judging the rage, not judging the
Mhm.
parts of yourself that you haven't necessarily been proud of. Maybe you've hurt people. And, I think we're living in a world too now. People are just really analyzing like how they've been maybe part of a problem. And so just looking at all the parts of yourself that you've contributed to a particular problem, racism, right? Like something that's existed always, just being able to really tap into how have you been part of the problem.
Mhm.
And that's shadow work. And that's a beautiful place to be. That's where we need people to be. How does one even start this journey, Jessica? Where do you even where's can feel so overwhelming if you've never really allowed yourself to feel your feelings? How and where do you start?
Yeah. I mean, everybody's different. Everybody starts wherever they are. And I would say I meet them where they're at. I feel like I'm able to identify that with people just because of my own work, like addressing my own shadow, experienced trauma in my childhood, and I'm working through that still with my personal therapist. I'm doing EMDR therapy with them, which has been crazy helpful. And I also did ketamine infusion therapy as well, which changed my life also. But knowing what I know from what I've experienced and what I felt, and the chaos of what emotions can feel like, and then knowing that there's something on the other side that's not going to be their emotional state forever. I feel like I can help them relate and feel comfortable and safe enough to go there. I also feel using the tarot cards and oracle cards really help because they represent archetypes and anybody can relate to it. And it really shows things that maybe the person might not be aware of. Or maybe if I pull certain cards, it makes them think of something differently. And then I can use that as a segue to help them open up more about it. It's such a twisting, winding path for everybody. Everyone's different. I also feel like the guided meditations help people get to that place as well so they can start opening up. But of course, I only do so much. If it feels like if their emotions are increasing to the clinical level, then I would most likely refer them out to traditional therapy before they come back to me, just because I want it to be ethically appropriate in the way that I can be handling what they're going through in this type of work that I do.
So I love that you're doing EMDR, and I know a lot of folks are like, "What the heck are they talking about?" We're in the mental health field, so EMDR is part of our language and vocabulary. But can you share a little bit, because I think it's helpful for anyone who has experienced significant trauma or any trauma really in childhood. EMDR is a great method for doing that work. And you also mentioned, wait, you did.
Ketamine infusion.
And yeah, if you don't mind sharing a little bit of what that is,
Sure.
that's new for me too to hear.
Sure. So it stands for eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And it could generally be used with repetitive eye movements or any other type of bilateral stimulation. And my therapist actually uses what she calls tappers, and I hold a buzzer in each hand, and it doesn't hurt. I say buzzers, but it's just like a light vibration, and they buzz back and forth. And she does that while I'm holding memories in my mind and following my train of thought. And it really helps me go through those past traumatic memories and reprocess them as I'm getting the stimulation in each hand. And it's mimicking the brain waves back and forth, talking back and forth in your mind. And it's like you're taking that memory and putting it in the filing cabinet, because trauma is kind of like, I think of it like you're walking around an office with a stack of papers and they're your memories, and then trauma happens and you drop the papers all over the place. And then those are your memories, but really you scoop them up and stuff them in a closet. Whereas EMDR helps you process them and put them away in the filing cabinet.
I love that visual because it really helps understand, like, kind of the way that the brain is working, right? When you have trauma and you have all these memories that you haven't actually processed out loud or said to anybody, but being able to really see all the papers, and then you get to have the empowerment and the power back to pick up what goes where and put it back into the memory, right? Not erasing it, but you're creating a
Mhm.
new relationship with the memory, and you're having a sense of power and control. And the stimulation acts like a calming
Mhm.
tool to help the brain and the body and the memory kind of all connect with that memory.
Yeah, and there's actually some skills that I use outside of therapy, like tapping my shoulders or my arms or my legs back and forth. It's a calming technique. It's basically like hypnosis. If you think of, traditional hypnosis when they're like this, moving the
Right.
finger back and forth. I mean, that's what eye movement desensitization and reprocessing is. Normally they have a light bar and you follow the light back and forth with your eyes.
Right.
That's actually what I've been doing through telehealth with my therapist because of COVID. So I watch this little light ball on my screen as she talks to me. There's a really great book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Oh, yes. By Bessel van der Kolk.
Yes. And he talks about EMDR and other type of therapies for trauma. It's a really great book. So that's EMDR. And then the ketamine. So it's a low dose of ketamine infusion. And I went 2 times a week for 3 weeks in December. And each infusion was 45 minutes long. So it was like slowly dripping the ketamine into my system. And I was like sitting back on a recliner. It was comfortable. I had my headphones in. I could listen to calming music. And really, I mean, to be blunt, I was just kind of like tripping for 45 minutes, but not severely. Like I wasn't like seeing crazy stuff, but it makes you go into like a dissociative state where your overthinking mind can separate itself from the emotion. And it's just kind of like doing work in the background. And of course, as I had my eyes closed, I could kind of see pictures like I was dreaming and stuff, but I wasn't like seeing psychedelic colors and stuff. But it was like an amazing, calm experience. And my therapist was actually tracking my scores on anxiety and depression because she would do a scale with me every 2 weeks. And you can see it significantly dropped. It dropped off the charts after like my third infusion.
Wow.
It was life changing. And you probably don't need it for the rest of your life. Maybe one booster infusion a year. I just had one in June just because I was feeling extra stressed out.
I think everyone just has to decide for themselves what works.
Hmm.
And, this works for some people, it won't work for everyone, but it feels like very trance like with all the different ways to tap into the shadow work. There's so many mediums, right? There's so many tools to access to actually get to the root. So it's all about what's going to work for you. Maybe your belief system won't allow, kind of allow you to be open to the tarot cards. And so it's not really actually going to work. If you're closed off to the energy, it's not going to work for you. If you're worried about tripping and having that's like, it's probably not a good idea for you to try ketamine. But if you aren't, right, then it's cool to actually try new modalities and new things for you to work through some of that and tap into that shadow work to get to the root. What are some ways that listeners could even begin to take the next step on this journey of healing and avoid spiritual bypassing?
Yeah, I feel like the spiritual bypassing, like the toxic positivity that's all over social media.
Yeah, it's easy to cross into that.
Yeah, and I feel like that makes people feel like they are defective if they can't just be positive. And so they stop trying or they just judge themselves as inherently messed up or wrong. And the first step would be, I would say, delete all those people off of social media. You know, Instagram can get pretty toxic. That's where I saw a lot of it the most. And that really brought me down, thinking there was something wrong with me because I couldn't be as positive as other people. And follow accounts that validate your feelings, that validate your experience, and don't make you feel like crap if you're having a bad day. And then just surrounding yourself with people who support you for who you are unconditionally, and then finding any sort of practitioner that you feel drawn to, depending on the modality that you're looking for, and start opening up to it. But the first step is addressing that it's okay, and then finding a person or a modality of therapy that makes you feel safe enough to go there. It's all about the relationship. I feel like the person has to like the person that they're talking to. Because I know I've seen other therapists in my life and they try and tell me what they think they know about my life or my feeling, and then you just block it and you don't get anything out of it. You got to find somebody that you connect with. That's the most important thing too.
I absolutely agree with that. Relationship really is the intervention more than anything. What if someone, Jessica, wants to do it on their own? If they're like, I want to get to the root of what I'm going through. I'm not wanting to reach out to anybody. I want to try this at home and do the work on my own. I hear that a lot. So what would you recommend for someone who is in that boat?
There's a lot of awesome guided meditations on YouTube. And I'd also recommend starting with just reading books that talk about it or dance around the idea of it. The first book I'm thinking of is anything by Eckhart Tolle, because his stuff talking about being in the present moment and accepting things as they are will help people accept their emotional states as they are and then be able to move forward. Another book that really, really helped me when I was in a darker place in my teenage years was Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. I read that.
Yeah, that book probably changed my life too, because it's about the Austrian psychiatrist who was in the concentration camp and how he was able to mentally get through that and how he could see other prisoners, how they would give up and they would normally die within 24 hours because you can just see in the way they presented themselves. He noticed that with the people he saw, that they would die when they internally gave up. So it's kind of a depressing book, but it also gives you some perspective.
And what if when someone is looking at the shadow sides of their life and looking at what society typically claims as negative emotions, which they're not. All emotions are important and they all equally have a purpose. But if someone's carrying a lot of guilt or shame and they have a difficult time either forgiving themselves or forgiving someone else as they look at those memories, how does one begin to work through those emotions of like guilt, anger, shame? That's a heavy question, but
You say shame, and I'm thinking Brene Brown, that's her
yeah.
thing. I've listened to the majority of her books. But the first thing that was coming up even before that was you don't have to do it alone. You don't have to do it alone. A lot of people think they have to hide this. They feel like they can't show what they're going through. And if there's people in your life that if you would open up to and they would judge you for it or they would make you feel like crap about it, they're not the type of people that you want to be opening up to anyway. But there are other people out there that will listen to you, that will hear you, and that will understand what you're going through. And I feel like having a community or just a group of people that you can connect with and make you feel seen and heard will make it easier for you to open up and address those things. Because doing it on your own is just so hard.
Yeah, it feels very isolating in that you're the only one. And when you begin to expose actually the feeling, it takes away its charge when you're doing it as a community. And then you see that it's actually common and that it doesn't become this, it removes, I think, the shame, especially as women, we carry so much shame and guilt. And so when we come together in healing spaces and circles and community, then it begins to heal and remove the shame and the charge of emotion that holds in your body and your mind.
Yeah, definitely. And you make it more of a normal conversation instead of a taboo topic.
Right. Just like when we talk about happy feelings, right? If we're celebrating something, it's so easy to post or talk about in conversations, all the great things that are happening, right? And those are great. Talk about them. That's absolutely important. And it's important just to have the other conversations too, normalizing depression or postpartum,
Yes.
normalizing the feelings of deep rage, if you're experiencing constantly microaggressions and being able to talk about that a way that's like, that's just equally important as celebrating a birthday
Yeah, it's all
or
important.
celebrating whatever, milestone you're achieving in life. Jessica, I'm also curious just to hear a little bit about your connection to like astrology and tarot cards. Like, where does that fit into the shadow work? How does that help you get the work done? Or like, how do you see those things fit?
Well, I don't want to claim to be an astrologer. Like, I'm not a super expert on that, but I do pay attention to it. I have apps on my phone, but I'm not somebody who would be able to like read a birth chart. Normally, I'm just looking at the astrology memes because they're funny. And I do know a little bit because I do the moon circles and whatnot. But with the cards, I used to not really be a believer. I've had a series of things happen that brought me here, that made me a 100% believer in using the card, like knowing that the universe or God or source or however you refer to your higher power, somebody else is there shuffling the cards with me. And I feel that 100% true, because how else would I pull the same exact card 2 times in a row after shuffling 10 times in between? You know, it's just a series of things that brought me to trust that they have the message that I need to hear. And then just being validated by, when I'm doing readings for other people that I've never met before, strangers on the internet. They don't give me any information about what they want to know. And I just pick cards and they say, wow, that's 100% exactly correct. I just picked the cards and I told you what they meant. But somehow the universe or whoever else was there to help the message get across. And just having that happen over and over again just makes me trust it more and more, because at the end of the day, it's the message that people need to hear in the moment. But people find me for a reason and I pick a card for them for a reason. It was all meant to happen.
And the moon circles, how do those tap into the shadow work?
So, depending on if it's like new moon or full moon, whether we're working on letting go or manifesting or setting intentions, I have everybody up here on Zoom and I let everyone have a couple minutes on the floor to talk about what they're going through, what they want to focus on. And I pick cards for everyone and they give me feedback, like how that applies. And then when I do the guided meditation during the circle, it's like a safe place in real time. Like, it's different than listening to a YouTube meditation because we're all here together. And then at the end is like a breakthrough point, because when I bring everyone back from the meditation, I ask for feedback, like, what did you experience? What did you like? What did you not like? And sometimes they say, I didn't see any of the visualization stuff that you said. I saw something else, but it was amazing and perfect. Like, they created whatever they needed, but it was in a place where we were all together. And it just creates healing for them. And I get really humbled to be able to make that space for them, because I feel like Like when I say I just read the cards or I just do the meditation, like I'm just holding space for people. Like they do the work. I'm just there.
And if someone's listening and they're like, how do I get in on this moon circle, this Zoom call that's happening with you? Where can people find you and find the work that you're doing?
So I mostly hang out on Facebook in my group. It's called the Soul Awakening Sisterhood. It's a private group, so everything that's posted in the group is confidential. I screen the people who come in to make sure that they're a good fit. And when I say screen, I mean like lightly screen. Like if there's if they seem like they're a troll, like an internet troll or something, I don't want them to come into a space and make it uncomfortable. So I hang out there. Every week in the group, I do live tarot readings on Tarot Tuesdays. So I just jump on a live video for about an hour and I just read cards for people as they show up. And then I post about the moon circle so that 2 times a month so people can sign up when they want to. But that's where I hang out most. I'm not too much on Instagram.
Love that. So people can find it on Facebook and search the group to be able to request to be added.
Yep.
And is there something on your heart that you haven't said yet that you would want listeners to take away from you?
I guess I want to mention the fear of feeling emotions and that it's okay to be afraid of those things. It's okay to feel afraid to go there because it's scary, it's heavy, it's deep. But if you find that courage, the courage is being afraid and doing it anyway. Really committing to yourself and your own personal growth that, you know what, this might suck, it might be an uphill battle, but I know it's going to be good for my growth as a person, because if I heal myself, then I can put that good energy out there to others and be more present. It's okay. It's okay to be afraid. It's the strength that you have to go there and go through the hard times. And because that's where you're going to find the healing. You can't ignore it. You can't ignore it. You have to. I feel like the purpose of life is going there. It's going to that place and integrating the dark side and the light side together.
That's a beautiful place to end, with just integrating that to imagery of the light and the dark together. Jessica, thank you so much for being here and sharing so much of your experiences and gems. And I really admire the work that you're doing, and so glad that we crossed paths in this lifetime together.
Sure, thank you. Maybe we knew each other in a past lifetime if you're into that.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, we're going to talk about that. I'm going to ask for a little personal reading now. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I loved this. I love talking about this stuff.